Does your vintage Fender drive you absolutely crazy whenever you turn the tremolo on because of that constant ticking noise? Well, this video, I'm going to show you guys how to fix it. It's very easy, very straightforward. So let's get into it. Now, the fix I'm going to show you in this video is simply adding a capacitor to two key eyelets, and that has eliminated it for every single vintage Fender I've ever worked on. But it is worth noting that some people say that if you mess with the lead dress a little bit, specifically of this tube right here, you'll know which one it is by which one is connected to this little heat shrunk unit right here. This is called the roach, commonly referred to as the roach. This is what's giving you your optical trem. So if you can kind of just trace that, follow that, see what tube that goes to, that's going to be the tube responsible for tremolo in your amplifier. And so you can play with the lead dress, meaning moving the wires around a little bit to see if that helps at all. In some cases, I guess it can. I've never personally run into it actually fixing a bad trem tick, but the solution I'm going to show you today is a 100% success rate for me and is very, very easy. So let's get to it. The first thing we're going to do is make sure the amp is unplugged. So once the amp is unplugged, we can unplug the speaker as well, just to get it out of our way. Now, as always, whenever you're working on an amp, you have to be very, very careful because there can be extremely high voltage in the amp, enough to kill you. So you want to get a multimeter, go to DC volts here, and connect the black to the chassis anywhere that it'll hold on. And then there's kind of a lot of spots you can check for voltage in the amp still. The best, in my opinion, is right here or right here because they have this little jumper wire. So if you have these little hooks, little hook leads, you can connect there and see. And this will tell you the highest voltage in the amp. Make sure you have standby off as well. And you'll see that there is no voltage in the amp. It is completely drained. So we do not have to worry about that at all. And the amp is now deemed safe to work on. So the basic premise of this is very, very simple. We are going to take a 10 nanofarad, that is a 0.01 microfarad cap. 0.01, the symbol you'll see looks like a little U and then an F. It's not a U, but it looks like that. And in this case, I've got a little disc cap here, which I have beaten up a little bit to make it not look so new, since this is an old vintage amp. And we're going to be connecting it to this eyelet on one end and this eyelet on the other end. You can also connect it to this eyelet because these two are connected. There's a jumper wire under the board. However, in my experience, it's easier to just go here to here, just like that, more or less. So let's go ahead and get the soldering iron rolling, and then I can show you guys how to do it. So as far as what kind of cap you can use, really, you've got a lot of options here. I have a disc cap I'm going to be using. There's no effect to the tone. What you're doing here is not part of the tonal circuit. It is just affecting the tremolo, and it's not going to affect it in any way that you will notice. So I'm using just a basic disc cap, ceramic disc cap. These are very cheap, very affordable. This is a 0.01, like I said, a 10 nanofarad. You can use a 0.02 as well. Really, there's kind of a decent range. You can experiment. Some really bad examples, you might need to go up in value. So 0.02, maybe 0.04. But a 0.01 has always worked for me. So that's what I've got here. You could also use a cap like this. This is a Vichy, again, 10 nanofarad. And these caps are not polarized, so you don't have to worry about which way it's supposed to flip it. Really, any kind of cap will work, such as this Mallory 150 would be totally fine. Anything like that is going to work. So what you won't use is like what you will find in a guitar. For example, like a paper and oil capacitor, things like that, that would not work. Again, we're going to be connecting it to these two spots, this eyelet and this eyelet. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of roughly measure out the leads. So what I like to do is just kind of place it roughly where I want it to go, like that. And then what I can do is just kind of mark. I'll use a Sharpie. That's what I tend to do. Just kind of mark roughly where I want the lead to go. Now, none of this really matters. You don't have to be, so perfect. But this just gives me a good idea of roughly where I want the bend to go. So now I've got those marked. I've got these teeny little Sharpie marks you can see there. And I'm just going to take it with my fingernail and just kind of bend it over so it's going straight down where the mark is. Now it's going to be far, far too tall. We're going to have to cut these leads. So I'm going to go ahead and take my little cutters and just trim those down. You don't want to trim too much because you can always, cut more versus you can't add any if you do it too short. But this is going to be too long. I already know that, but I'm just going to kind of show what I mean. So I'm just going to first mock it up Make sure I'm roughly in the right spot. Looks like I need more of a bend. No big deal. See what that looks like. That looks pretty good. So now I'm going to trim these leads just a little bit more. I just know from experience that I can go shorter. But again, if you've never done this before, start long, and then you can kind of make your way down. So we're going to go ahead and just put in one side first. Now to do this, get your soldering iron, and you want to go ahead and add solder first to the tip. Just like that, to get some flowing in it. And if you've never worked on your amp before, nobody's worked on it, the solder joints might need a little convincing to start flowing. So what you can do is just kind of apply the tip to the eyelet, add a little bit of solder, and then boom, now the solder is fresh and reminded to flow. So it should be a lot easier to work with now. Let's go ahead and get our disc cap situated here. It's a little bit more difficult on these because you have these wires kind of floating on top of everything. The disc cap, we don't have a ton of headroom, but it's no big deal. We can easily make this work. Just a slightly bit more finicky than it would with a different kind of cap. So we got it roughly situated now, so I'm just going to go ahead and add some solder, or rather heat up the solder here so I can push, there we go, push the cap into the eyelet just like that. Now we're going to add more solder there to make it a stronger connection, but for now it's just enough to hold the cap in place. We can do the other side, so we'll kind of go this one, then back and back. This can be a very crowded eyelet, so it can be a little bit more difficult, but we should be fine. There we go. So with that in place, you can kind of just give it a little bit of a tug both sides just to make sure it's relatively solid in there. And now we're going to add solder to this eyelet. So kind of what you can do is just add a bit more extra solder to the tip before you apply it. And then we'll just kind of add some solder, and there we go. Do the same thing to this one. And just like that, we've got our trem tick fix in. Super simple, super easy. So now let's just go ahead and turn it on and confirm that that fixed it. All right, that is with the amp on, trem on, and I hear 0 tick. So we have fixed it. Super, super simple. Now, if you have a vintage Fender and you're wondering how I have tremolo without a foot switch in, I'm using this. This is just a little shorting RCA jack. You can get these from Amazon or wherever else. You can make one yourself. And yeah, you just plug that in to the jack back here, exactly where the pedal would go for the vibrato. And there you go. Now you got trem. So this kind of enables you to have it on and off without having the foot switch plugged in all the time. You can't always just short it at the jack, but this is my preferred method. Yeah, there you go. That is how to fix trem tick on a vintage Fender. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And until next time, see you guys.